Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by again. Look, if you saw my coverage of the debates earlier this week, you know that one of my favorite aspects was how Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren didn't attack one another, but rather stood together against the kind of neoliberal attacks that came from all over that stage. And that they didn't take the bait, because, they were the two frontrunners of that debate. They didn't take the bait and attack one another and go after one another on the differences that exist but are relatively small compared to the rest of the field. And in so doing, they were able to sort of withstand the barrage that came from all around them. This was not the case with Biden and Harris, the two frontrunners in the second debate, who went after one another, and that debate as a result was much, much more confrontational than the first night's. But one of Elizabeth Warren's policies, one of her statements, has sort of drawn the ire of a certain Republican, none other than Liz Cheney, who is, of course, Dick Cheney's daughter. Now, Elizabeth Warren, during that debate, made the statement that she does not feel the United States should have a strike-first policy when it comes to things like nuclear arms. She feels that that sort of policy only puts nations on edge, and that the United States is a world leader and as a nation that believes in peace and as a nation that believes in order, should never have a policy that they will strike first. And this, for Liz Cheney, is seen as a blasphemous position. So Liz Cheney says, key question for Elizabeth Warren today. Which American cities and how many American citizens are you willing to sacrifice with your policy of forcing the U.S. to absorb a nuclear attack before we can strike back? So totally not a loaded question or anything. This is just a bad tweet. It basically primes the pump for saying Elizabeth Warren wants Americans to die. It basically says that she's willing to sacrifice people for this idea of peace, when of course nothing could be further from the truth. The goal of this is to prevent anyone dying from nuclear bombs, American or otherwise. And it should be remembered that there's only one nation in the history of our species who has used a nuclear arm in active combat, and that is the United States. They struck first, and they caused great suffering while doing so. And the United States is perhaps in no position to unilaterally declare it has the right to strike first, given that history. And I think Elizabeth Warren is right. But what's really great here is that one of her key primary challengers, Bernie Sanders, stood up for her here. And I'm going to read Bernie's tweet because it is fantastic. So Bernie says, taking national security advice from a Cheney has already caused irreparable damage to our country. We don't need any more. Thanks. I mean, that's fantastic, right? It's a great burn. It's a great own of Liz Cheney. It brings in the fact that her father's a war criminal and that he's gotten away with it largely. But the key factor is that this is a moment where more cynical politicians looking for an edge against an opponent would jump on the bandwagon and attack them, or at the very least would sort of allow the attack to happen and not chip in and help. Bernie Sanders might not take Liz Cheney's side, but a more cynical politician would let Elizabeth Warren be attacked like this, hoping that they could gain something from it, that this would hurt Elizabeth Warren and that you would see the fruits of that loss for Warren. But Bernie here is taking his own political capital and he's using it to help Elizabeth Warren. Again, one of his key challengers to the nomination. And this is what makes Bernie Sanders special, and this is what makes the Elizabeth Warren-Bernie Sanders cooperation special. Because I think they realize, and I hope their supporters do, that they have some major differences. I really believe that. There are key differences, and I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. But in a field that's chock full of neoliberal, we can't do any better voices, they need to be working together. Because they realize, I hope, and I think their supporters realize, again, I hope, that one of those two has to be the nominee if we're going to see real positive change. So that's that. I mean, I also have to read out a great tweet by Ocasio-Cortez. So AOC is basically like my face when Liz Cheney, of all people, tries to offer foreign policy takes as if an entire generation hasn't lived through the Cheneys sending us into war since we were kids. So again, what I love is solidarity between, these three groups. The Warren group, the Sanders group, the squad, all standing up for one another as they face these disingenuous bad faith attacks from people like Liz Cheney and the Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment. Liz Warren's position here is the right one. It's the one that can promote world peace. It's the one that shows, again, the United States is the world power. They're amongst the leaders in nuclear weapons. They are the only country to have ever used them. So for them to take a position against a first strike policy is a bold one and a principled one, and I think it's one that sets a shining example to the world. So let's keep seeing more of this, guys. Let's see more cooperation between Bernie and Liz. Let's see AOC chipping in for both of them here. I just want to see more of this cooperation because, again, it's going to take more than one woman or one man to change the political and social and economic status quo.